How do we improve the lives of 1 million people each day? Let me first introduce you to a couple of the people who use Penn Station every day in diverse ways. When Jerry tries to catch his 6:15 home to Fairlawn, he often misses the train because of the crowds and must wait for the next. When Carol comes down from the Bronx, she's retired and she takes the 3 to use the main library. She wants to write fiction and wants to find a class nearby convenient to her schedule. Doug, in town for a meeting, has to leave early to catch the Acela home for Boston, and his client has a last-minute question. He wishes he had a little more time to answer it. The Andiamos are visiting from Italy. After dinner on the east side, they want to see the circus elephant parade at Madison Square Garden. They want to take the subway, but only have this really confusing tourist map. Kristen IMs her childhood friend Jessica, who's visiting New York City for the first time. She says, don't worry, take the air train to Jamaica, transfer to an LIRR train to Penn, and don't worry, I'll meet you on the lower level at track 20. And Jessica responds, these people and 1 million more use, live, and work near Penn Station every day. For some, it's not a comfortable experience, and I don't think most New Yorkers would put it among their top 10 favorite things about the city. How can we make something so central to so many people's lives a better place? Well, the obvious answer is to improve Penn Station. What we found is that you can't truly fix Penn Station's problems unless you move Madison Square Garden as well. Perhaps the better question is, where would Madison Square Garden want to be? Well, maybe it's a place that's close to transit, connected to existing tourist, hospitality, and entertainment attractions. A place that provides an enhanced patron experience, better service, and functional access, and a place that creates a singular new identity for the garden. Of all the sites considered, we believe the western end of 34th Street meets this criteria. Partnering with appropriate government agencies, Pier 76, which is now the Toe Pound, could be extended down to 33rd Street, creating a 16-acre site on the Hudson, where Madison Square Garden could be located. But how would you get there? Well, the new 7 Flushing Line subway stops at 11th Avenue and 34th Street, and a park promenade could bring people up and over 12th Avenue to the arena's front door. An LIR station could be built underground here in the northern part of the yard, and a Metro North station on the Empire Line could be built underground here. New York Waterway's 39th Street ferry terminal is next door with service to New Jersey, and there could even be a bikeway and elevated pedestrian walk, let's call it the Water Line, connecting Hudson River Park, 42nd Street, the west side, and back to Penn. Finally, if you extend the 7 line back to Penn Station, loop it under Park Avenue to Grand Central, you could create a 7-circle line connecting East and West Midtown with all major subway and regional train lines. This site puts MSG near all the attractions, hotels, and restaurants that feed the city's $55 billion tourist entertainment and media industry. Most importantly, locating MSG next to Javits would stimulate new thinking about hosting large-scale conventions, trade shows, and special events in the city. So with MSG as an anchor to the west, we can reimagine Penn Station. By far the busiest on the northeast corridor, the current facility is way over capacity. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here is the site for Penn Station. Here is the Farley Post Office building to the west, and the tunnels going off to the west of New Jersey. Amtrak and New Jersey Transit have a plan called Gateway that builds 2 new tunnels under the Hudson feeding directly into Penn Station. New Jersey Transit could run more trains through, and we can connect our new 7-circle line right next door. Amtrak's high-speed rail trains would use these tunnels and continue north to Boston. To the north, there could be a bus terminal that could connect to the north the regional commuter bus services that are growing in use here in the city. All these new connections will transform the way we think of the Northeast Corridor, and while the Acela takes now 3 hours to get to DC and 3.5 to Boston, future high-speed trains will cut that down to 90 minutes. Why wouldn't we want to improve the gateway through which you could get anywhere in the Northeast in less than 2 hours? If Penn Station can be reconfigured to provide better access to the region, it would allow the Farley Post Office building, also known as Moynihan Station, to be used differently. The Farley building could be converted into a center for education. 2 million square feet of academic use would provide a different type of accessibility. access to community college programs, adult learning, business incubation, work credential programs, and job training. Drawing students to this accessible location from throughout the tri-state region, not just the city, it will help train employees for high-value and high-demand industries in the future. Without compromising access to the trains below, Amtrak's West Concourse will remain and service trains, the train platforms from 8th Avenue, and the post office windows will remain as well. And the rest of the building would be academic classrooms, support spaces, and laboratories. There could even be a large event hall under the historic mailroom skylight. Twice as big as Waldorf Astoria's Grand Ballroom, it would be the largest column-free banquet and event space in the city. Now, these are all grand plans, but how do we pay for them? To add to the required contribution of public funding, one method is to allocate large footprint development sites at the four corners of the station, 1, 2, 3, 4. These buildings could be designed not strictly as commercial office towers, but as hybrid buildings, offering diverse activities which are essential to the sustainable growth and urban cultural vitality. 6 acres of active public space would be provided to increase value on the ground as well. And in addition, several sites along 7th Avenue could be upzoned to convert these sites into mixed-use developments, extending the renewal of Times Square on 42nd Street south of 34th Street. Most importantly, all these sites benefit from easy transit access to the 50 million people living on the Northeast Corridor and all the businesses and markets therein. Why wouldn't companies want to locate in such an accessible place? So let's take a look at these moves a little bit in detail. To orient you, here are the existing buildings on the Penn Station site. And again, where would MSG want to be? In Manhattan, there are few sites big enough that could accommodate the arena, and even fewer that aren't held by private interests. 12th Avenue next to Javits has always felt like the West Side's backyard. How can we flip this to make the area more accessible? Well, let's extend the pier south and service the arena at grade. The park promenade could rise up from 11th to 12th Avenue, crossing over, and patrons would enter the arena at this level. The water line would provide 2 other means of access, and below, Hudson River Park's shoreline would be restored to encourage marine life. Javits could pursue the expansion plan it shelved 5 years ago, expanding its capacity to be one of the top 10 centers in the country. So, with Madison Square Garden relocated, Penn Station could truly become a multimodal transportation center. With the ACE and 123 trains adjacent and the 6th Avenue, Broadway, and PATH trains nearby, the key is getting passengers distributed as quickly as possible. That means straightening and expanding the exit concourses where passengers first arrive, and when Penn South is added, the Gateway project, extending those concourses to accommodate those new platforms as well. The West Concourse under the Farley Building steps would be completed, and the number 7 Circle Line would anchor the south end of the station complex. The Gimbels passageway would be expanded to connect to subways and PATH trains at Herald Square, and the station itself would have a central departure and waiting room concourse, where all the train services would be clearly marked and accessed from. New Jersey Transit, high-speed rail at the bottom, Amtrak Regional, Long Island Railroad, and bus terminal on the top. The train hall above ground would span above, extending from 34th Street down to 30th Street, with a retail concourse towards 8th Avenue, and on 7th Avenue, a park. On the roof, another 3-acre roof garden. This bottom-to-top transformation of Penn Station will make connections easier and clearer. There will be enough space to accommodate the crowds, and the station will have the architectural distinction to match Grand Central. Across 8th Avenue, the Farley Building will be converted into the Center for Education at Moynihan Station. Next door, the water line will provide bicycle and pedestrian connection from Penn to the west side, and we will restore the building's interior spaces and provide expansion space. Now, looking at the district from above. Rezoning the 4 sites will allow for a significant new tower at 34th and 7th, a super tall skyscraper, maybe 180 stories tall. Together, these 4 sites would total 14 million square feet. 8 additional sites along 7th Avenue provide 10 million square feet more. So those are the parts of the scheme, but what kinds of places and experiences do we create? Well, on 7th Avenue, we would have a park that spans 3 blocks in front of the station, an incredible open space in an area of Midtown that's lacking in them. As we move through the park, bioswales and raised mounds will allow light down into the station below. Now we're in the train hall, 120 feet high with large skylights that will capture daylight from above. Below the train hall will be the departure concourse and the platform level, where additional sets of escalators and elevators will increase the ways passengers can get on and off trains. Exiting will be clear and more logical. At the west exit concourse, this open space will reach up to daylight and air. Moving up further, the retail concourse above on 8th Avenue will have 3 levels of shops, restaurants, and amenities to serve both the station and the district. Above that, a 3-acre stepped terraced garden and a rooftop gallery space opposite the Farley steps will be accessible directly from 8th Avenue. A sunlit horticultural garden, fragrant, colorful, and green, overlooking the west side with views of the river beyond. The water line will extend west from the terrace for joggers, bicyclists, and pedestrians and connect to the MSG promenade. And here would be MSG's spectacular new home. It remains the center of sports, entertainment, media, and pop culture in the city. Its concerts, its dog shows, the circus, the Rangers, the Liberty, and the Knicks. These new buildings will define the new skyline of New York. Located in the center of the city, Penn Station will be the heart of a 50 million person metropolis. We understand this is a long-range plan. It will not happen overnight, but it's a plan that works in synergy with real transit improvements, new and expanded public activities, and private development. The economic increase in value the plan represents is immense, but it also takes into account the livable environment we must leave to future generations. Planning is never just about pretty pictures. It's figuring out what we need and making choices for the future. When people think of big urban plans, we often get caught up about all the buildings and forget about the people. This group of people, just a few of the million who use Penn Station each day, will have better lives if we can make changes in the plan. A new Penn Station can make life better for people who use it and the rest of the city. The time is now.